Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing? Trying to keep up with this a little bit. Busy season for me, on and off the field. Trust me. Breaking down tape, getting the national championship. Sorry, sadly we lost to Indiana, but it's bowl season, the Shrine Bowl. Watching tape like that. Going to have a couple invites from the Shrine Bowl to the Senior Bowl. Last time I talked, Ruben Bain and a couple other players, Isaiah Pons, a couple other guys accepted the invite. Then they've since rescinded the invite. I didn't think either of them guys really had any business playing in this game, but it was really cool just to see that they wanted to. This is a busy season, man. Trying to keep up with work, home life, everything like that, man. But we're gonna get it to you. Gonna keep this thing rolling. We got a lot coming at you, man. We had DJ's first mock draft as a Commanders based podcast. Of course, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what he was seeing with the Commanders pick. He had us. We're at 7, so his pick was Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State University, and interesting pick, man. Earlier in the year, before we even went into the draft, like before we even went to the NFL season, back in training camp and things like that, going over the Washington roster, things like that, man, linebacker was definitely one of the positions that I highlighted. It's definitely been a position that I've highlighted over the course of the year for college football as being one of the positions of strength going throughout the draft. Sonny Styles is the elite prospect at the position. The height, weight, the speed is all there. Tape is all there. I know Arvell Reese gets a ton of flash. He gets a ton of hype because he also mixes it up a little bit with the edge position and the off-ball linebacker. Sonny Styles is definitely worth the pick, man. He's not. You don't find many guys at 6'5", 240 that run sideline to sideline like he does. He plays very, very smart, very, very instinctual. Has everything that you want from the linebacker position. Then again, you got to factor in the same thing that we've talked about all draft, that I've talked about all season with this whole draft. Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles. You're going to have these guys. These guys are grading out as top players in this draft. That's what they are. They're worthy of the pick. The problem is, and history tells you, certain positions are devalued. It doesn't mean the player's devalued. It doesn't mean the impact that they put on the field is devalued. It just means that when you're drafting these guys, you're paying a certain level of percentage towards the cap higher than most of the market for the rest of the players league-wide, even as a rookie. So it's not a position of you're not putting yourself in a position of value early on in the contract, man. That's GM talk. Like edge rushers, quarterbacks, offensive tackles, their cap numbers are so high, so your value for them is them on their rookie contract. That's why teams do it, because realistically, man, it isn't just about hitting on the picks. It's about maximizing the picks and then maximizing the value of your assets. The salary cap is part of the asset. That's why the edge rushers, that's why the offensive tackles go. But again, Sonny Styles, he's definitely worth the pick. There's going to be a million mocks from here to now that we probably discuss over here. I listen to Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino and guys like that. I listen to a lot of football things and try to always counter what I'm seeing from their scouting to my scouting. So again, I'm going to talk about Sonny Styles. Daniel Jeremiah is somebody that I very, very much respect, man. He's usually on, when I have a player that I'm looking at throughout the year, when it comes draft time, when he starts talking about his guys during the season and somebody that maybe isn't like a top 10, top 15 graded player, but he starts talking about his favorite player in the draft, like one of them guys that's like a mid-first round guy getting the grades. We're usually very similar in that, and I'm going to kind of go over some of that this week as I talk about the Senior Bowl. I'm going to do a lot more episodes this week. I am going to give you guys the content. It's Senior Bowl week. I got to, so it is what it is. So I will make time for these pods and get this out to you. Wanted to talk about this Sonny Styles thing because Sonny Styles is such a really, really good player. He's a dynamic piece. But it's the Senior Bowl, so we're going to talk about more than just the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft. The players that were available, the very next pick for that mock draft was Jeremiah Love. That's a player that I've talked about. Him and Jaden Daniels in the same backfield, I think it would be deadly, be dynamic. But again, the positional value, his grade much higher than players that are going to go before him. But running back, positional value, you get a little bit of knock on it. But the player is worthy of the pick, going number 8 overall. He'd be worthy of a top 5 pick. He's that guy. He's really, really dynamic for the running back position. But again, the injuries and things like that, the effectiveness, the long term, the contractual value that you're getting for that pick. Unless you're on a team that you believe that you can win with, or turn your roster around, your if you're picking in the top 5, obviously you're a bottom team. There's multiple reasons why teams pick in the bottom team. If you think injuries are your thing and you think your roster is further along than where it is when you're picking in the top 5, go ahead and pick the running back. Get yourself over the top if you believe your roster is right there. We have Jaden Daniels. That's why I feel like that is a type of a possibility, even though I think you're still rushing it a little bit if you pick the running back, but I wouldn't be against it because of the impact he would have with Jaden Daniels, which is another reason why I'm talking about him. Caleb Downs, he's, again, safety, devalue position, things like that. High weight speed is not going to be in the elite measurable category when it comes to, a physical box safety, because realistically, that's what really, really fits this defense. Dan Quinn has always had a dominating physical box safety when his defenses have been at their best. It's really, really allowed, the cover. It's improved the grades for the coverage and things like that, but then they're an enforcer. They make really, really big hits in coverage and things like that. They set the tone on the back end. Caleb Downs is a little bit smaller in those measurables than a guy that you typically see on the back end of a Dan Quinn defense. Now, that doesn't mean anything about it. He's just a very, very high Q football player. So again, Caleb Downs, would he be, elite measurably? No. I mean, he's probably going to test at a 4.4. He's a very fast guy. He's a very fast guy for a safety. A lot of safeties run 4.5s, 4.6s. They still play good. As long as they play fast on tape, he's going to be fine. But he's going to run what he plays at. He plays at a 4.4. He could run even faster. Who knows? But as far as the physical, the 225, 6'3", that's a dominant, big body, strong safety. He's a little bit smaller now. He's going to be like coming around in the 5'11", probably like 210 to 215 range. But he's a very solid built player. But again, is he going to hold up through the 18, 17 game seasons, whatever we are, then the playoffs and things like that? Remember Eric Berry. This is a very similar prospect, in my opinion. Better in the box, can play deep, rangy, super effective, super high IQ football smarts. The next safety in that draft was Earl Thomas, and he was a late riser. Earl Thomas ended up having the better career. I mean, we all know that Eric Berry had a lot of factors that went into that with the cancer and the things off the field, the injuries and things like that. His career was a little bit cut short, but we all know when Eric Berry was on the field, he was very, very dominant. I think Caleb Downs is a very, very similar player. If he's going to play in the box, is he going to be able to hold up to the grind for the NFL? I mean, he's going to work. He's very physical. He's very smart. He's very instinctual. So he's going to play smart. All those things you're going to get from him. But again, playing in the box, it's a physical world because you're going to be in every tackle in the run game. You're going to be on big tight ends. You got to be physical enough. He's a little bit smaller guy from the position. He's built more like the Buda Baker kind of guy who plays over the top on the free end. So he's a rangy safety that plays on the back end. Not saying Caleb Downs can't do that, but you're not utilizing his best asset, which is just having his nose around the football. Every play in the box, that's where he shines. So again, just like Eric Berry, who is a similarly built guy, maybe an inch or so taller, but similar measurables, similar, game speed, everything you see on tape. Eric Berry, is he going to hold up? Is Caleb Downs going to be able to hold up? So again, positional value, not really there. The game tape is there. The football IQ is there. The grades are there. What you see in college is there. But again, devalue position. Where is he going to go? He goes after us. Again, I'm bringing that up because Sonny Styles, again, Caleb Downs was on the board. Ruben Bain was also on the board. But again, you're talking about another high weight speed guy. But you are talking about positional value being up there. The pick right before on Daniel Jeremiah's draft was David Bailey, the Texas Tech defensive end. And this is a highway speed guy, and that's why that guy's going in the top 6. Honestly, he probably would have gone top 5, but I think he thought that the Giants' biggest need was cornerback. There was a cornerback that is grading out for him and me similarly, worthy of the pick. Mazador, not Mazador, that's Akeem Mazador, sorry. The LSU cornerback. We'll get into that. Anyway, again, I want to talk a little bit about the DJ mock draft, just kind of quick, sum it up, things like that. Sonny Styles is definitely worthy of the pick, man. If you watched the Commanders last year, man, the biggest hole in this defense, if you ask me, it's not edge. I mean, like the edge position needs to be upgraded long term, but that's not the biggest hole in this team. Especially if you're looking statistically, because as we can talk about statistics, Dante Fowler Jr., 10, 11 sacks, 2024, the year before. Frankie Louvu, good sack numbers with Dante Fowler. Again, Frankie Louvu last year, a couple sacks, things like that. Like, this defense has been able to scheme up sacks. We're not talking about schematic sacks. We're talking about a guy that can impact his own sacks, create his own sacks. That's where the Ruben Bain Jr.'s, the David Baileys of the world, that's the player that this defense is missing. That's why I'm talking about edge constantly. It's not that we can't get home and get guys and manufacture sacks with the players that we have, but the biggest thing about this is we have to have guys long term that are going to be impact players on the defense from the edge position. We don't have those guys long term. That's why I'm constantly talking about the edge position. The edge position is very deep in this class. Some might even say maximizing the draft. You do go Sonny Styles because you're not going to get that type of linebacker later in the draft, but because the influx of really, really good linebacker play in college football this year, that's not necessarily true. In fact, I think linebacker is probably the strongest position in the draft behind the edge position. So again, Ruben Bain Jr. come back in the third round or move into the second round, something like that. However, the assets go throughout the offseason. We only have a third right now, so we're going to talk about that. But how do you maximize this draft value and the value of the class and the talent that's coming out in it? Do you go a Sonny Styles in the first round and then pick your edge in the third round, or do you go edge Ruben Bain, trade back, something like that, and then maybe go linebacker in the second round? Maybe you're talking about like the Georgia, linebacker or whatever, K-State's linebacker, things like that. Anyway, just it's maximizing the pick. It's being available to you. There's a lot of scenarios that are going to come into this, and honestly, I think the options are very, very. They're very, very broad. There's a lot of things that this team can do with the picks that we have. There's a lot of things that we could do with the picks that we could have. So again, man, that's the reason that I'm talking about Sonny Styles and the edge position, because linebacker is a position of need. I liked what DJ said about the simple fact that we have Bobby Wagner and things like that. He's not going to really come back next year. You can't really guarantee. You just can't keep going into that basket. You need to get somebody long term to fill that linebacker position. Off ball linebacker is the positional value decline. Is it worth it to us because our defense is predicated on linebackers running clean? And we saw in 2024 when Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner were super effective, we saw how much better the defense was. That also was due to safety play. One thing I will say, even though I haven't gotten a lot of my Shrine Bowl, or the East-West Shrine Bowl game, I didn't get a lot of potting into that. One thing I will say is there was a constant about the meetings with the Commanders, Adam Peters and the guys that they were meeting with. Safety, edge rusher, off-ball linebacker. That's obviously they know where the holes on this team are, and they're on the defensive side of the football. That doesn't mean that you don't continue to, look for wide receiver and things like that until you get another guy that you think can take over for Terry McLaurin long term. Maybe that's a free agent this year. Looking forward to the 2027 class, you go wide receiver in there because the high level upside is dynamically special in that draft with the Jeremiah Smith. Ryan Williams, he's a really, really big name. The production's got to start matching, the things. Coleman out of Auburn, who just transferred to Texas, that's going to be a huge move for him, playing with Arch Manning. Honestly, probably moves himself into the top 5 with the production that he can probably have next year. Honestly, there's a ton of them. The wide receiver out of Clemson, things like that. We've talked about these guys throughout the year. I think the 2027 class is so loaded at wide receiver. I think it'd be the third round at the earliest for me that I would want to take a shot at a wide receiver for the Commanders. And there's a ton of guys on that list that I really, really like. If they would fall to that range, I don't know if they do. I think they're really, really good players. But wide receivers a pick your poison kind of thing. It's a feel thing. CJ Daniels, Omar Cooper. I really, really like Omar Cooper, the Indiana wide receiver. Man, I really, really like CJ Daniels, the Miami receiver. I like the way they play. They're very similar. They can create, in the screen game, yards after the catch. They can go up and high point the ball with the best of them. They play bigger than their frame, bigger than their size. Both of them have dynamic, explosive ability when they're healthy. Omar Cooper Jr. showed that all throughout the year. I think he missed like 2 games. But when he was on the field, he's completely healthy. You saw C.J. Daniels toward the end of the year. He was playing through some stuff. The impact in the playoffs wasn't what you would expect from C.J. Daniels when he's healthy. But he did make his plays. He showed up. He does what he does. Really, really good hands. Consistent, dynamic bursts for their size. Again, playing bigger than their size. Those are the type of wide receivers I like. If one of them guys was available in the third round, I would definitely take that pick. So, getting to the Senior Bowl, I'm going to highlight one player each day leading up to the Senior Bowl, and these are guys that are really, really high on my list for whatever reason, whether it's the schematical fit for what my coaching staff has been known for, whether it's Dan Quinn's defense or whatever. The offense is going to be a little harder to predict with David Blau. But on the defensive side of the ball, again, we don't even have a defensive coordinator yet, but just going off of Dan Quinn, the way that he runs it, he likes defensive backs very similarly to what I like. He likes defensive backs that tackle. Cornerback position last year wasn't tackling, but it's hard to tackle when the guys are coming off clean because you don't have nobody setting the edge in the run game. Dedrick Wise was supposed to be that guy. Again, that's why we're talking about the defensive end position. That's why I favor Ruben Bain. I love his play strength. It's not just the ability to get after the passer. I think he's only going to excel at that and get better at that as he's a pro and he adjusted the level of game in the pro, the talent level. But his power translates to the NFL dynamically. He is a super, super strong individual. When I watch the way that he moves bodies and uses leverage for having shorter arms and being a shorter guy at 6'2", at the edge rusher position, which you don't really see that a lot. But the biggest thing is the funniest comp that I'm getting to this guy is actually a former defensive tackle, and he was a dynamic player in the NFL, which is why there's always a thing with this. When I'm making a comp, I'm not talking about the All-Pro or the Hall of Fame player. I'm making a comp to what I saw in college from a certain player, the way that they use their size, their height, weight, speed, and things like that, the way that they play and the leverage that they play with, the way that they bend or things like that. That's what I'm comping. I'm comping the prospect. I'm not comping the guy that ended up having a 10-year healthy Hall of Fame career because you can't do that. So I'm comping the college player and the college tape and what I see when I watch Ruben Bain Jr. And again, Aaron Donald is not the guy. I'm not saying he's Aaron Donald. What I am saying is the way that he uses his length, the way that he gets his body completely leaned into longer tackles and things like that, and then he drives them back, and the strength that he uses with that leverage, it's similar to how Aaron Donald used to play the position from the interior. Ruben Bain does it on the outside, which has always kind of been a knock. If you didn't have, 30-some inch arm, 32, 33 plus inch arms, you're a shorter arm kind of guy. So you get knocked for your limbs. That's where the height, weight, speed comes in. Certain guys know how to excel their game and play to their features. Their God-given, height, weight, speed. Some guys have maximized a certain skill set to be able to counteract the deficiencies that they don't have athletically or length-wise. Ruben Bain Jr. has done that. Aaron Donald showed that you can do it. There's definitely little keys. And when I watch him, the way that I watch him use leverage and get into guys, get underneath of them and drive them back, he plays very, very well. So again, he's a guy that plays bigger than his frame because of the elite level power that he has. Again, setting the edge in the run is very, very important. Leading me to the reason that I'm highlighting this player is because I like corners that can tackle. If you can't tackle, which has honestly been kind of a headache for me with Trey Amos because I liked him. He was a willing tackler at Ole Miss. Kind of looked a little bit hesitant in the tackling department this year. I don't know if that's an injury thing. Maybe just trying to stay healthy, be a rookie, make sure that his coverages and his keys, focusing on certain things. Man, he didn't want to get burnt, which he was really excelling in coverage. I'm not going to knock Trey Amos, but I need to see better tackling from him because he was a solid tackler at Ole Miss, and he was a solid tackler at Alabama. Ephesians Prysock, the guy that I'm about to highlight right here, the UW tackle, man. This guy is 6'3". He's every bit of 6'3". I think he's like 6'2" and 7/8 is what he measured in at the Senior Bowl. He is a long, lanky cornerback. Both cornerbacks from UW are very, very tall, long, lanky, rangy cornerbacks. So the way that when Dan Quinn's defenses have been the best, he's had a tall, long, lanky cornerback that's fit in it. Whether it's Richard Sherman, whether it was Trayvon Diggs, who was maybe 6'1", but his length was a lot better as far as his wingspan and things like that from corner to corner. Very, very good corner. I like Ephesians Prysock, man. He's just a guy that you can win with. He is a guy that can tackle. He comes up. He plays everything the way that you want, and he's a guy that fits into this defense. He's a guy that I'm keying for the Senior Bowl. There's a ton of guys that I love in the Senior Bowl, whether it's Keon Black from Indiana. Trust me, there's a bunch of offensive linemen. There's a ton of edges that I'm really, really looking to see. You'll see me highlight some of these players later on in the week. Like I said, I'm going to do this daily. I'm going to highlight a couple players that I really, really want to key on for this game because I think they're really, really good fits for the Commanders at some point in this draft. It doesn't mean they're first-round players. I'm not highlighting Ephesians Prysock to be a first-round pick. for the Commanders. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's going to be a round and there's going to be a value where he is going to be the best player on the board. And if he's there and they're staring that pick in the eye, it's going to be hard for me to pass him up, at least if I was calling the shots, because I think he's a schematic fit. Do you go third year in a row, first 3 rounds, picking a cornerback in 2 years in a row in the second round, and then one in the third round? It's hard to kind of allocate them type of assets, but when your team is continuously getting burned over the top, you can blame the safety position for communicational things. You can blame the cornerback position for communicational things, but eventually you got to clear that shit up. And a lot of that happens up front, but it also happens on the back end. It takes both sides. So again, you look at a Reuben Bain Jr. or somebody like that, like a David Bailey slips to you. You run that card in. Well, round 3, you're looking at an Ephesians Prysock, somebody like that. Somebody who I'm really, really looking to see how he handles certain different traits from this Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl practices, you go one-on-one. So he's not just going to be able to say, schematically, this is what I love about the Senior Bowl practice. This is why I don't lock my board in for my college football grades until after the Senior Bowl. I mean, I do factor in certain things from the combine just to check and double check what I'm seeing on tape, but ultimately the tape tells the story for me. There's a couple things that I might learn from the combine, medicals and things like that, but that always comes a little bit later, a lot closer to the draft. Anyway, so Ephesians Prysock, what am I looking for from him? I want to see how he lines up against the quick, twitchy, 5'9" wide receivers that are going to be there. It could be the Halls from BYU. It could be, but again, then I also want to see him against, Jacoby Lane, the USC wide receiver, 6'4", the Notre Dame wide receiver that's going to be there, 6'3", well, actually, I think he's a true 6'4". And again, very similar body type. You want to see how he matches up against them guys. Is he going to shadow them and is he going to lock them down? Because that's the matchup that you're drafting a guy with this high weight speed for, to shut down the bigger wide receivers. Then what you're also going to see in matchups over the course of the Senior Bowl week and in the Senior Bowl practices, you're going to see him up against the 5'9", the 5'8", the quick twitch guys. Some of them guys might be gadget players. Some of them guys might be playing like the Deebo Samuel role, the Elijah Moore role from, like from back in the day from Ole Miss. A lot of times with players like that, you want to see how he can cover. Can he keep him in the box? Can he stay twitched up when he's not right physical up in their grill, which is one of his plus level skill sets. Well, these NFL coaches are going to say, okay, I want to see you on off zone. I want to see you play back on this, and then cover him down the field and see how you do, twitched up, things like that. Let the wide receiver get into his route and break you down and see how you react, and can you keep up with him on the burst in and out of the route. That's what you're going to look to see. I'm very, very curious to see how Ephesians Prysock does in this week's practices leading up to the game. He's a guy that I expect could have a really, really big game and really elevate his draft stock, not just because of the high weight speed, but because of everything that I've seen on tape from this guy. He's the type of player that you want to have on your roster. So again, man, this is the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. It's your host Cody Potter. I'm going to get these episodes out to you all week as we go up. This was Ephesians Prysock, and this was also the recap of Daniel Jeremiah picking Sonny Styles. We're going to talk more college ball with you this week. Senior Bowl is one of my favorite weeks of the year. It's a very, very busy week of the year. And honestly, like I said, I'm sorry I didn't even get any of the East-West Shrine game to you, man. There were a lot of really good players in that game. There was guys that are going to get invites to the Senior Bowl if there's an injury or things like that. Very, very well deserved, man. Some of them guys really, really showed off well, and they're going to get themselves drafted, especially on the O-line. The O-line excelled in the East-West Shrine game. That is something I can give you right now. But again, man, thank you guys for checking out the pod, man. I got a lot more for you this week, especially coming into draft season, man. This is a busy time of the year for me. This is what I pretty much work all year long for, scouting these college football players, grading them out, figuring out where they fit, looking at draft, like how the draft might unfold throughout the course of the draft season and things like that. See what teams do in free agency and start to really, really lock in. But again, like I say, after the Senior Bowl, my board is pretty much set. So once you hear me start locking in and keying in on certain players in certain rounds, that's where they're staying. It's not going to change much for me unless you hear something crazy come out later on the medical or something like that. But again, thank you guys for checking out the podcast, the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. Have a blessed week, man. Peace.